Back when Black Ops Cold War first got released, I made a video talking about Onslaught, which is the secondary game mode for zombies. This game mode faced a lot of criticisms early on. It was simply not good. It had a lot of issues, and on top of that, it was a PlayStation exclusive, which didn't help at all. There were a number of glaring problems. The gameplay was very linear, it was boring and uninteresting, and it felt like the game mode was missing a decent chunk of content. For example, you couldn't pack a punch, you couldn't upgrade your weapon rarity, you couldn't get more than a level 1 armor, and there were no ammo mods. And the problem with that was, after a certain point in the game, the zombies and the bosses became so strong and durable that your weapons were simply not capable of keeping up. So the game would usually end with you voluntarily quitting as opposed to reaching some sort of an end game or the game beating you, which is not exactly a sign of a well-designed game mode. The pacing and the flow of the gameplay was horrible. It was too repetitive, and the whole gameplay experience just didn't offer enough to differentiate itself from the normal zombies game mode. Now keep in mind, this is a PlayStation exclusive, so what this game mode is supposed to do is target anybody who doesn't own a PlayStation and entice them to make the switch. This is what Sony is using to basically go, hey guys, look what we have over here, and the ideal reaction would be Xbox and PC players enviously looking and going, oh gosh darn it, I wish I had a PS4. But that's not what happened. Nobody gave a shit because the game mode sucked major balls. Now, when I first made a review of Onslaught, I knew that at some point they were gonna address these issues, and with the newest update in Black Ops Cold War, that's exactly what they did. They looked at every single thing that was wrong with this game mode and pretty much fixed them all. You can now pack-a-punch your weapons in Onslaught by picking up a chalice. They have different rarities that are associated with a pack-a-punch level. Bronze chalice gives you single pap, silver chalice gives you double pap, and gold chalice triple pack-a-punches your weapon. There are also these other drops called ether tools, and what they do is they upgrade the rarity of your weapon by 1. So if you have an epic weapon and you pick up an ether tool, your weapon is going to get upgraded to a legendary. There are also level 2 and level 3 armor drops as well as ammo mod drops. I have a slight issue with the ammo mod drops. Their drop rate is so inconsistent and random that it makes it a lot more difficult to develop a strategy that relies heavily on a certain ammo mod. I don't know if that's by design or it's just an oversight, but sometimes you might get an ammo mod drop super early, and sometimes you might not get any until way after 30 surges, and they're very rare, so the first ammo mod you get is probably what you're going to be stuck with for the rest of the game, or at least for a very long time. So if you get to surge 35 and you finally get an ammo mod and it's Napalm Burst and you don't like Napalm Burst, then too bad, you're just gonna have to suck it up. But on the other hand, you could get Deadwire at Surge 8 and you'll be golden. You still get your weapon drops, power-ups, equipment, ammo drops, and support items, which are way better now because there's a larger variety of support items in the game now, which make them a more reliable method in dealing with the bosses. Speaking of which, with every 3 surges, you get an elite surge just like before, but now the mimics and the manglers are added to the mix. So the game kind of alternates between each enemy type. So in the first elite surge, you can get a Megaton, in the second one you can get the Mimic, and in the third one you're gonna get the Russian Mangler. Which is great because dealing with the Megatons over and over again in Onslaught got really old really fast. And with the Mimics and the Manglers being part of the boss rounds, it seems very unbalanced. Like when the Megaton spawns in, it's a big deal. He has such a presence, he's such a big threat, especially in the later surges, that every time he spawns in, it's almost that feeling of, oh shit, I gotta deal with him now or he's gonna be a problem. With the Mimics and the Manglers, it doesn't feel like that at all. They're so much easier to deal with, and in order to compensate for that lack of balance, you get multiples of them instead of just one. But that still doesn't make that much of a difference. You're gonna be able to take them out with ease, especially now with everything you have in your arsenal. They're not gonna present much of a challenge. In Firebase Z, you have to kill a Mimic every 30 seconds, so it's not that much of a challenge to deal with 2 Mimics every 9 surges. And some people might have an issue with that. I actually look at it as a positive. I like having the elite surges alternate between basically strong and weak boss zombies. I feel like if every boss round was as difficult as dealing with a Megaton, the gameplay would become repetitive much faster, because it would feel like you're doing the same thing over and over, and having Mimics and Manglers just adds a little bit more variety in terms of difficulty at different different points in the game, which helps keep the whole experience fresh for just a little bit longer. So most of the issues with Onslaught have been resolved. But even with this newer, better version of Onslaught, I have to admit, I still don't like the game mode that much. And it was weird to realize that because everything I thought was wrong with the game mode, they pretty much fixed. And I finally got to the conclusion that I don't like the format of Onslaught. I'm not a big fan of the template. Now, let me explain. To me, the ideal secondary game mode for zombies is something that is vastly different than normal zombies. It should provide an entirely different experience while still preserving some elements of zombies. In Onslaught, you spawn in, you kill some zombies, the orb moves, you follow it, it settles, then you kill more zombies, rinse and repeat. Now, the problem with that gameplay loop is that it's very similar to a normal game of zombies, except it's more linear and you're more restricted in terms of where you can go and what you can do. In a normal game of zombies, you spawn in, you kill some zombies, the round ends, you get a little break, then the next round starts, and you do that over and over again. In Onslaught, you pretty much do the same thing, except now instead of rounds, you have surges, but they work pretty much the same. It's just that in Onslaught, you have less options. So to me, Onslaught doesn't feel like a different game mode. It feels like normal zombies, only less. That's why people didn't like Jingle Hells either, because it wasn't different enough. The pacing and the flow of gameplay in Onslaught is too similar to normal zombies. So the game mode ultimately doesn't really offer a unique experience. It's just regular zombies on restricted mode. Now, lucky for me, with this new update, they added a different variation of Onslaught called Containment. It's basically a secondary game mode within a secondary game mode, and it's vastly superior to normal Onslaught. And it turns out it doesn't take much to make Onslaught fun, because all they did was add a few minor changes that end up having a really big impact in making Onslaught a much better experience. There are essentially two things that are different. One is that Containment takes place exclusively on gunfight maps, and for those of you who don't know, the maps are super small. And because of that, the orb is stationary, so once you complete a surge, you don't have to do that annoying thing where the orb starts moving and you have to follow it and all that. The second change is that now in between surges, you don't get a break. So once you complete a surge, you immediately go to the next surge. The game never stops, and just like that, we have a decent secondary game mode that is fun to play. The best way to describe Containment is that it's pretty much a combination of Cranked and Onslaught. And one of the reasons why I liked Cranked is because that game mode played at a much different pace than normal zombies. It was fast-paced, it was chaotic, and it was good. It wasn't amazing, but it was a good, solid attempt. Containment has a similar pace. It's super fast, panic-inducing, non-stop action. Wow, I think I just quoted a Six Flags commercial. The point is, Containment is great, but for some reason, it's a limited time game mode, which is really fucking weird. So you're telling me Containment is a limited time variation of a PlayStation exclusive secondary game mode of a side game mode in a video game? How in the fuck did we even get here? Like, it's not enough that only PlayStation players can play Onslaught, so only half the player base can play this one game mode. But in addition to that shit sandwich, those people can only enjoy this better variation of Onslaught for a limited time. So Containment is basically a decent game mode that comes with a lot of baggage, because Sony decided to basically give all the Xbox players the middle finger while simultaneously saying, you can suck my limited time PlayStation exclusive balls. As a matter of fact, I'm pretty sure that's gonna be their slogan from now on, which is the opposite of play has no limits. I do think Containment is good. If you haven't played it yet, I do recommend it, and I hope in the future we see more game modes like this, only with less baggage. That is gonna do it for today's video. Let me know in the comments section down below what you think of the new Onslaught and Containment. I do hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure to drop a like, subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.